On May 25th, 1738, a treaty was finally signed, ending the war between Maryland and Pennsylvania, known as the Conojocular War, or Cresap's War. Digging deeper, we find that the war had started in 1730 over boundary disputes and escalated over the next few years to the point where military forces became involved in 1736 and 1737. The treaty, ordered by King George II, had ended the shooting war, but the boundary dispute lasted all the way until 1767, when the Mason-Dixon line became recognized as the boundary. The colonial governments of Pennsylvania and Maryland became embroiled in the dispute when settlers from each colony started crossing the Susquehanna River back and forth and creating settlements in what was perceived to be each other's territory. Questions about legal claims to the land, private ownership deeds, land taxes, and law enforcement in the disputed areas precipitated violence. The first violence consisted of an incident where two Pennsylvanians taking a ferry across the river attacked the ferryman, Thomas Cresap, hence the name Cresap's War. Maryland had been infringing on the west side of the river into Pennsylvania territory based on a self-serving interpretation of the charters for each colony. Cresap had been given 500 acres by the Maryland government in land claimed by Pennsylvania. Much of the conflict centered on Cresap, an obvious opportunist that engaged in bullying and thuggery among the settlers, using ruffians as his gang and rewarding them with land. In a strange turn of events, a 1774 dispute known as Lord Dunmore's War, Virginia versus Shawnee and Mingo tribes, is also known as Cresap's War because of the involvement of the son of Thomas Cresap, Michael. So how did the war become known as the Conojocular War? This name came from the Conojocular Valley, of course, where the disputed lands were. As a question for my students and subscribers, do you think there will ever be another war fought between two or more American states? Please let us know in the comment section below this video. Here are some possible answers to this question.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Teagan from Civil War Week by Week, a YouTube history channel that covers the American Civil War as it happened so many years ago, week by week. And I'm here today to answer the question, do I believe that another war between two or more states is likely? No, it's not going to happen. The reason why is a lot of these earlier conflicts are border disputes, and those required lack of knowledge regarding the border or lack of respect towards federal authority and the federal authority ability to impose its will. Both of these issues have been solved, as it were. First, it's easy to figure out what state you're in. Use Google Maps, and our ability to accurately depict, states on maps has improved significantly with the skills of cartographers over time and our equipment. And it's never been easier to contact your government. Phone call, email, or if you want to be really up to date, you can tweet at them, and they'll be more than willing to tell you what you should be doing. Now, what happens if you don't like the federal government's decision? Well, you can always appeal. The United States has a judiciary system where states can disagree with the federal government and hear their case out amongst judges. And if they don't go your way, well, it's actually a dead road unless you want to take on the U.S. military. And I assure you no state wants to do so. The U.S. military has the most up-to-date attack jets, drones, anything you would need to destroy utterly a state guard. It is suicide for any state to disobey federal authority. Even a group of states, whichever side has the U.S. military on it, or a majority of the U.S. military, well, that's the side that's going to win. Now, what happens if there's a decision that the U.S. federal government doesn't care about? Well, this is possible in a low-stakes environment. Which state does this Denny's belong to? I don't see the US federal government going over that to war. But the second blood is shed, well, the US government does care when its own citizens are being killed. The US government spent years fighting the most deadly conflict in its history against itself, and it is unwilling to replicate such an event. So for all of you foreign experts in interstate conflict, or just people who are interested in it, well, I hate to break it to you, but the United States is not going to be your next subject.
Good day, everyone. My name is Matt, or Hipstorian, from the channel Hipstorian, and to answer the question whether I think there will ever be another war between two or more American states, I like to believe that there won't. Now, over here where I come from, it seems quite hard to imagine individual states or provinces going to war with one another to begin with. Which is not to say that there's no animosity between them whatsoever, but it usually doesn't go much further than a particular state or province being the butt of a joke from another, usually mine. To that end, it's quite hard for me to imagine that states will ever go at one another's throats in the modern age. But if there's one thing that has become apparent more than ever in the past years, it's that there's a lot of division among certain demographics and especially political groups. It does strike me that these kind of divisions are made to look more explosive than ever before because of the media coverage and the amount of animosity that's exchanged between these parties, putting all the more kindling on the fire. So with that in mind, I actually think that a war between states, or any civil war for that matter, would be more likely to erupt on a multi-state level between certain groups and demographics, rather than between the states themselves. That is assuming there will be one, though. All in all, I do doubt that there will be any, simply due to the fact that, in my naivety, I believe that a wise majority would still be opposed to any kind of armed conflict, and that there are safety nets in place, as opposed to, say, during conflicts in the 18th and 19th century, that would help prevent any conflict from escalating nowadays. Alright, have a wonderful day, and try not to smack one another's heads in. Be nice to each other. Take care.
If you like this video and would like to receive notification of new videos, please feel welcome to subscribe to History and Headlines and become one of our patrons. Your viewership is much appreciated. I also encourage you to check out the YouTube channels Civil War Week by Week and Hipstorian for more great history-themed content.